Hello and welcome to the United Federation of Reddit podcast. I'm your host, Big J76.
And I'm Yesman.
On this podcast, we'll be discussing news and events centered around Reddit communities who are members of the United Federation of Reddit. The format of this particular podcast will be less about Star Trek news in the mainstream, as there are already podcasts filling that need, but instead, the focus will be on the Reddit Star Trek community. There's lots of great Star Trek communities to discover on Reddit. We have those in an easy-to-find list on the sidebar of the subreddit called r/United Federation. That's reddit.com/r/United Federation. And Yaz, one of the things that we are doing with United Federation is putting a focus or a spotlight on a particular member subreddit communities there.
That's right.
This month, November, the first community of the month for United Federation was r/Treknobabble. That's r/Treknobabble. And we've got subreddit. It is a great subreddit, for news, images, really just a lot of, the overall kind of, very welcoming of many different things. But, you don't have to hear it from me. We have brought in for this episode one of the moderators. Now, I'm a moderator of Treknobabble, but you hear enough from me. We brought in as a special guest. We have now. You're gonna have to help me with pronouncing your Reddit username. Is it ZadocPaet?
It is exactly ZadocPaet, and you can call me Rob if you want, but I go by Zadoc or Rob. I am ZadocPaet. I'm the moderator of our Treknobabble on Reddit.
Can you just before we go ahead, can you just tell us the story behind that username?
Oh, sure, yeah. So I'm like a huge video game nerd. I'm famously known for that on all the Reddits. My favorite video game is called Panzer Dragoon Saga, and then when I was creating a Reddit, way before even Reddit, when I was creating an internet username a long time ago, I wanted it to be something unique, and so I picked two character names from my favorite video game, Zadok and Payet, which means righteous chisel.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So you're a big Sega Saturn fan then.
I'm a huge Sega Saturn fan.
Sega fans unite.
Right on, man.
I've just been playing Yakuza 0 and it's brilliant.
It is brilliant. Sega for life, fan. My blood bleeds Sega blue.
The best blur.
we were wondering that where you got your, because I see usernames. I'm sure everyone does that. Is, hey, I wonder how he got his username, or what's behind the story behind it. I'm surprised I just pronounced it correctly on the first try.
Good job. I mean, if you think about it, there's not a whole. Zadok is easy, but it's the Payet part, right? Because it's PAET. So it's a tat.
Right, right.
I say Payet, and the game says Payet, so that's why I think it is.
So you're moderator of Treknobabble, r/Treknobabble. But are you a moderator of any other Star Trek subreddits? Because I noticed you've got quite a long list of subreddits there.
Yeah, I have a few others. The other main one that I'm active on, and when I say I'm active on, I really need to up the activity. Is our Enterprise. So our Enterprise is an Enterprise original subreddit, and it was originally banned for spam because it's full of spam for enterprise services and crap. And so I requested it, fixed it, and then allowed it to be used for Star Trek. In fact, there was already an R Star Trek Enterprise when I made our Enterprise. I didn't know that, but we're a little bigger than the other one. But I was thinking about, using using it as like a different subreddit. So one thing I was thinking about doing is there used to be a subreddit that was about the TARDIS. And what it would do is it would go post in a very old thread, and then it would link that thread to its own subreddit.
Oh, yeah.
And it was an interesting bot, and that bot ended when Reddit started archiving old threads. But I think it would be cool to have an enterprise bot that boldly goes anywhere on Reddit and does the same thing, but in space and not in space and time. So I kind of want to do that. That's my goal one day with Enterprise, is to have it boldly go and discover
different
subreddits and comment.
Discovering content from different subreddits, like just any random sort
like
of
a post, it would discover a post, make a comment, and link its own comment back so that people from our subreddit could go participate.
It sounds
But
like
that's just an idea.
Have you ever seen the subreddit r/deep into YouTube?
Yes, I have.
It sounds vaguely similar to that concept of like just exploring some vast archive of content and just finding the really unique and strange stuff inside it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the next things that I'll use our enterprise for is I'll probably link it up to Treknobabble, and I want to do an enterprise rewatch with maybe an episode a week or something.
So something, just getting back to r/Treknobabble a little bit.
Sure.
Can you tell us how did you become mod of that subreddit? Like, how did that happen?
That's a good story. So I became internet friends with Dead Fraggle, who's the founder of Treknobabble. And the way I found Treknobabble as a user before I became a moderator was our Star Trek, which should be like the main Star Trek hub on Reddit, banned all like direct image posts.
Yep.
And which really had a chilling effect on the community. So if you go back and you look at its traffic stats over history, or if you go to the web archive and you go back and you look at, the months before it started that policy, or even the year before it started that policy, when it was a fraction of the size that it is now, you'll see that the posts on the front page of it were much, much higher upvoted. There were more comments, there were more views. That's because this is the fundamental nature of Reddit, where media posts will rise faster.
That's right. Yeah.
Non-media posts. And so their solution was to ban all direct link posts except for like tweets, which is a really interesting way to get around an image ban, because you can tweet something or find something that's been tweeted and then it'll open up like an image in Res or a new Reddit. So it's an interesting way around that. So I mean, there's already big holes in it. So Treknobabble is more of an all-encompassing Star Trek community, which allows members of the fandom to post their fan art or their creations or their cosplays or their GIFs or anything that they want that's, fandom, or even their lower effort content like memes or image macros and stuff like that. So we're an all-inclusive. We're more of an all-inclusive subreddit, and it's a direct response to how restrictive and, I would say, elitist the community, not really all of the entire community, but the core members of the community and definitely the mod team of our Star Trek is.
Right. So basically, it sounds like, and now I've been a moderator on Treknobabble for a year, over a year, and you've certainly been there. It looks like we've been about the same time. Of course, you mentioned Dead Fraggle started about 5 years ago, and that is. It sounds like what happened, and this is interesting, hearing some of the history, because you do see some names that are common amongst a lot of these subreddits. There's a few in the Trek subreddit moderating community where you see some common names, and it seems like a lot of these subreddits all started close to the same time. So basically what it sounds like, and what you've kind of confirmed, something that I've been hearing, is that you have, one Star Trek subreddit. Everyone's kind of, it's one big happy family. And then there is a decision made to cut out or restrict a certain type of post. And then it looks like at that point, you had a big fracturing. There were, subreddits then started just appearing, that were needed to sort of fit every niche need.
Yeah, and so and that's kind of like what happens. So like I used to mod other big media subs too. Like one of my biggest ones was our Doctor Who, and I modded that for like 4 years. And I think, we banned everything but image macros and like lookalike objects and stuff like that. But we were a way bigger subreddit. So it's a subreddit of over 300,000 people.
Yeah, it's quite large
compared to our Treknobabble, which is, much smaller. And it's more
14,397 right now.
Yeah, I was actually just looking over. I was like, we just got a little over 14,000 people there. So I think that it's bad though when you ban particular kind of content when especially when you're supposed to be like the hub sub, you know what I mean? So like, for example, with the Doctor Who community, Doctor Who is the hub subreddit, and then our Gallifrey is like the discussion only subreddit. And or Star Trek has that too. They have our Daystream Institute as their discussion only, which is, and generally those discussion only groups are going to be more elitist because those are going to be your more hardcore fans who are less casual in the community, who aren't doing like the fan art and stuff like that. They're there to discuss the lore, and you should
have a particular interest, like.
Right, absolutely. And you should have those satellite communities, but with our Star Trek, they kind of turned their main hub community into a discussion community, like by default. And so it kind of screws everyone who wants to like have this more casual fandom. And that's what Treknobabble is supposed to be. It's supposed to be exactly what Big J said at the beginning. It's supposed to be the news and the text post and the memes and the GIFs and everything.
So it sounds like basically what Treknobabble is what Star Trek was.
Yeah, except I'm not sure Star Trek ever allowed memes. We allow memes, but you also have like the satellite subs are really fractured. Treknobabble was never like consolidated as like the number one alternative. It probably is the number one alternative, but it's really super small. And then you have other subs like our Ryza, which I think is a really great sub. But I think it would have been better if, we had that activity in Treknobabble. Nothing against our Ryza staff, for example. I think it's a great sub. I love posting there. But my point is you have like all these satellite subs that have so much content crossover.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I'm biased, and I would like it all to be on our Treknobabble. But you have all these subs that have all these content crossover, and so you don't have like a single destination.
I think r/Ryza has a slightly different sort of goal as well, in the sense that it's
it does, and it's more of a free for all. Yeah, and we're a bit of a free for all too. See, we even do like the episode discussions, but we do them in our Free Folk, and a Free Folk is a spin-off sub of Game of Thrones, where it's rampantly allows spoilers. So we allow spoilers. The philosophy that Dead Fraggle set for the Reddit, and I try and be true to, is, allow whatever the community will tolerate. And so, I mean, I don't remove a post unless it, breaks a Reddit rule. We have very few rules that we enforce on the subreddit.
So what sort of content would you say? Is there any content that might not necessarily be strictly against the rules, but you might not allow? Or might be borderline?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example. I really don't like. See, I can give you stuff, but I can't think of any example from the actual subreddit. Like, I'm really not a fan of when people post, creep shots of celebrities when they're at the beach and stuff. And I mod subreddits where those kind of things get posted, and I remove that. I'd probably remove something like that, even if it was. See, and I don't know, too, because the other thing is, too, okay, celebrities at a public beach, it's legal. Now, do I punish OP for the industry that exists of tabloid photojournalism, or do I leave it up? And now that I think about it, I'd probably leave it up. So if I can't really think of something borderline, if it's borderline, I'm probably going to side with the user. It would have to be pretty far outside of the border for me to come down on it. Like obvious spam will get it. Any obvious hate speech. So coming up to Discovery, there were probably 2 or 3 examples, where maybe someone used the N-word against Michael Berman, and I had to remove that.
Absolutely. I think that goes without saying.
On the topic of Discovery, without deviating from our current discussion too far, what does r/Treknobabble have an official position on the abbreviation? Is it DSC or DIS or Disco?
I like STD.
Is that an official?
No, we don't have an official. I think DSC has become like the general internet standard. A lot of people who are fans of the show, I think if you're a fan of the show, you're more likely to call it Disco. And I'm not a huge fan of the show, and so I call it by its initials, STD.
Well, and we did that. For example, that was a discussion that we had in Star Trek Gifts when Discovery was coming around, because we had the flares. We wanted to flare the posts, and that was a big discussion. Was okay. We need to decide before we have a lot of posts, what are the initials going to be, and it pretty much came down to a DSC or DIS. And we were trying to decide, okay, well, which one seems to be the go-to? I was checking Memory Alpha, CBS, just trying to get a consensus. And at that time,
it's really interesting, isn't it?
It is. Now, at that time,
it's like this trivial thing that's actually kind of fascinating.
It's very trivial. And I'm sure listeners are going to be like, okay, well, why do you spend so much time trying to determine a post flare? These are important decisions, at least to us.
It's life or death when you're a moderator.
For sure. When you're a moderator, yes, it's very it's different, because you don't want to change midway. And because now, if you're, you're going back and reflaring posts, if you're wanting to keep things neat and organized, and Zadok, you brought up a very good point a little bit ago, and this is something that I have struggled with. Even being a moderator for Treknobabble, because when it comes to being a moderator, I would have to tell you, there's different types of mods. There's the mod, the person who's looking for, following the rules. I have to remove this, do that.
Right.
And, then there's
procedural mod.
Procedural mod. That's good. Yeah. Procedural mod. And then there's what I like to call content mods. And then, then there's CSS mods. I'm a content mod.
You're the mod who adds content to Reddit.
Right. Correct. And
it's a good kind of mod to be.
It is. It's a good mod to be. It's you don't have to play the part of the bad guy all the time. I kind of leave that up for the procedural mods. If I need to be, and you know how it is. If you need to be the bad guy, you got to be the bad guy. But I think that the content is how you grow it. And with Treknobabble, there are times where I sit and I ask myself, I'm trying to get a good handle on the content, because with all these satellite subs, like Star Trek memes and some of the others, they can be a little bit more defined. And with Treknobabble, almost on a daily basis, I've got a GIF, because that's the main thing I make are GIFs.
And they can pretty much all be posted there, because as long as it's on the subject of Star Trek, we'll allow the content.
And I haven't had anyone say stop yet. And the good thing with being a mod is I can fight for the content I post.
I'll even see your post in other subs and cross post it over. Like, has Big J76 posted this too? Treknobabble yet? I mean, like, no. Cross post.
Absolutely. And if I didn't, it's only because for some reason I thought, maybe this doesn't quite fit. So yeah, right. if you ever catch me being too conservative, you're more than welcome to grab that, because and then the other thing, and this has been kind of brought up as well, is the cross posting is how you're going to grow the content for the communities.
That's right. Yeah.
It helps to keep them active, because one of the big things about the United Federation, and this is, and I'm sure Zadok that you noticed it too, is that for a while it just kind of was. It needed to be pruned, it needed to be maintained, needed to be kind of right the ship. And one of the criticisms that I had gotten just from input I received from others was that the sidebar of United Federation was just full of dead subs. And I said, okay,
that's true. It was.
We're going to fix that. And I spoke to Dad Fraggle and some of the other leaders, with United Federation, and I'm sure you saw the mod mail too, because you're a mod in United Federation.
I think I was in on some of the discussion part of it too.
Right. Absolutely.
Just a quick point. If just to interject, for anybody who's listening, when we mentioned Dead Fraggle, he's a mod on quite a few Star Trek subreddits, Treknobabble and United Federation and Star Trek Science and several others.
Yeah, he was one of the big leaders of the trying to coalesce people around an alternative Star Trek sub because he felt the rules in our Star Trek were a little too oppressive to regular users.
Well, and I think that was a great concept, a great idea to do. Was to try to bring those niche subreddits together and kind of have them, going under under a common flag there.
Yeah, the problem with Star Trek on Reddit is Star Trek isn't popular on Reddit, and that's the problem that Treknobabble faces with less than 15,000 users. Is Star Trek hasn't been cool since the 90s. I mean, unfortunately, that's the truth of it. You had a little flare up with the new movies, but they kind of petered out and the last one I think was particularly bad. And I think the reviews seem to confirm that. So no offense if you're a fan of the last movie. I just think it was a particularly bad Star Trek entry.
I think a lot of non-fans didn't really like it as much. The impression I got with it was that it seemed to go over reasonably well in our community specifically. When I say our community, I'm referring to Star Trek fans broadly, not just Star Trek.
Right.
But a lot of non-fans I know didn't like it, which is interesting.
Yeah, I'm more of a, I'm in my mid 30s, so I'm more of a TNG era. Like that's what I grew up with.
Yeah,
and so maybe I feel like it's too removed from the Star Trek I like. I'm not sure why, but the last one I really didn't like. And Discovery, I watch it. But I mean, like when it went on break last season, I could have forgotten about it completely, and that would have been it. Yeah, when it went on break, it was just yeah.
And I think that is another issue that we're trying to tackle, and I think that was I believe one of the driving forces behind United Federation of Reddit after the fracturing, as it were, of the Star Trek community is the fact that even outside in real life, there always has, and probably more now than there was before, but I see a lot of fracturing of the Star Trek community, a lot of infighting, the fandom just, we don't like the new Trek movies, we don't like Discovery, et cetera, don't like Enterprise. And then you have these small satellite subreddits and, just the existence of them. And it's great. I mean, if that main hub hadn't done what they did, then we may not have some of these alternate communities, and a lot of people really have come to like and appreciate the fact that there are other niche communities out there, and that's the thing is you're taking all these little satellite subreddits trying to join them together, because you're right, Star Trek really is not all that popular on Reddit. I mean, look at the memes. Look at the meme economy.
Yeah, right. I mean, even the prequels have a way more powerful meme economy than Star Trek does. I mean,
absolutely. So what is it? 700 hours of Star Trek, and you can't even hold a candle.
Well, I mean, look
prequels.
but also look at the post frequency in the main sub. Our Star Trek, which I'll concede is the main sub. But obviously it is. But look at the post frequency, look at the user traffic, and look at it as a trend over years. It's just fallen off a cliff. And it's actually, as time increases, their traffic's decreasing despite the fact that they're growing in users.
See, I have a funny, I actually personally have a funny connection to your Treknobabble subreddit through our Star Trek, actually.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So if everybody here go to r/Treknobabble, you'll see on the sidebar, assuming you're going on desktop. I guess you can see it on mobile.
And old Reddit.
That's right.
Old Reddit.
Old Reddit is the only Reddit. Anyway, you'll see the r/Star Trek Discord server linked in the sidebar.
Right.
I used to be a moderator in that server around the time that r/Treknobabble was sort of that cross-linking happened. So yeah, just a funny little.
Was there drama when that crossing? Because I don't know anything about it. Because
no, there was no drama. I just distinctly remember. This was last year.
That moment in history.
Yeah. I distinctly remember when we talked about it. We said we should contact that subreddit because it's a really good subreddit, and we did. And this brings me to my next point about r/Treknobabble, is that the moderators in your subreddit there were very, very willing and eager to sort of connect Star Trek communities. And if you go to r/Treknobabble and you look in their sidebar, go to the Trek Friends section, you can see so many different communities linked, and even non-Star Trek communities, you can see them linked. You've got Blade Runner linked, you've got Red Dwarf linked, and it really, the willingness that y'all have to, try to bring fans together, I think is very evident in the work that you've done with your sidebar alone.
Well, yeah, and that's all credit to Dead Fraggle too. I mean, I think it also is part of what I'd call like the Reddit spirit, because Reddit is really about bringing communities together, because that's what the site itself does. It brings all different kinds of people together from all over the world, and which is why I love Reddit so much. This is why, for me, Reddit's a hobby. It's not just a thing I do once in a while. It's more of a structured hobby that, like, hey, I have time for Reddit right now,
Yeah.
Because it does these amazing things like this. Like, it brings all these different communities of people together. And I think that, and that's definitely what Dead Fraggle was going after when he saw that there were all these small Star Trek communities dedicated to, just Voyager or just Deep Space Nine that weren't getting. There's even, a Deep Space Nine memes. And speaking of meme economy, there's a Deep Space Nine meme sub only, but it's small, but they're an active subreddit.
And right, and that's the other part that I think seems to be tends to be an after effect of some of that, and that is part of what you can do with Reddit is creating so many different communities. It does seem to be that branching is good. However, do you think that branching has a detrimental effect to the community? And what I mean by that is you have Treknobabble, and for example, you have Star Trek memes, where memes are certainly more than welcome there. But then you see a Voyager memes or Deep Space Nine memes. To me, and you guys certainly weigh in on this. To me, that kind of feels like that's an unnecessary branching off.
It's an age-old debate. Something I picked up from my time when I did archaeology briefly was that taxonomy, classification of species is a big thing in archaeology, and they have two sides to it, and they call them lumpers and splitters. And I think it basically applies to what you're talking about there, Big J, where lumpers are people who think that that different species should all be grouped together under the same category, as opposed to splitters who think that everything should have its own specific category.
Right. And I'm very much on the splitter side of that debate in science, and in Reddit, I take both views. And so, like, for example, I'll just give an example in my other modding experience. So I moderate our retro gaming. Mm-hmm. I also moderate our Atari 2600. I also moderate our Mega Drive, our Game Gear, stuff like that. And our retro gaming. So in our retro gaming, you can talk about all those things, but sometimes it's a lot better to go to that specific community subreddit. So let me relate that back to Treknobabble and, let's say, a Voyager subreddit. So in Treknobabble, you can come and ask about a specific episode of Voyager, and you'll probably get an answer. But if you go to the Voyager subreddit, you're going to be amongst people who are the biggest Voyager fans. And so you're going to have the most in-depth conversation there. And so I think there's room for both on Reddit, because Reddit is special. If it weren't Reddit, if it were another platform, I might say, hey, maybe you need just a dedicated Star Trek room, or maybe you just need a dedicated retro game room, and you don't need, a subreddit just for the Sega 32X, which was the very first subreddit I ever made.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a niche subreddit.
Over 1,000 of us now.
Wow. That's actually bigger than I thought it would be.
1,000 strong.
It's bigger than I thought it would be. I made it. I thought I'd get to like 400. But so I'm just saying, even so even though, and that, if you're not aware of video games, is one of the most niche consoles ever, and we got 1,000 people in an active subreddit. And so with a show like Enterprise, I feel like, if I can get 1,000 people who are 32X fans, I should be able to reach 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 5,000 people who are Enterprise fans. But, it's really difficult because the popularity of Star Trek on Reddit is just so low, and CBS is really not doing anything to help. No. And with Star Trek not being on network TV, with now you have Orville being so popular and really filling that Star Trek, we miss Star Trek base. So you have less people thirsty for Star Trek content, or who just don't care. I mean, and it was really interesting watching Orville and Discovery side by side come out, and then watch all that goodwill that Discovery had just flow into our Orville.
Well, it's interesting. I'm saying this as a fan, as somebody who, I personally am a big fan of Discovery, but I think there's a truth to what you're saying. I think if we talk about CBS for a second, because they certainly don't seem to really be that interested in promoting our, or at least interacting with our community or giving us stuff besides, small things like licensing. I mean, if you look at as somebody who is a gamer and an avid moderator of gaming subs, I think you can sort of back me up on this, but there's next to nothing in terms of gaming for Star Trek. I mean,
no, yeah. I mean, you have the Star Trek Online stuff, and then that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and really, if we're sort of excluding Star Trek Online just for the sake of demonstration, I mean, the last time we were really getting many Star Trek games at all was 20 years ago.
In the 90s, in the heyday.
Point-and-click adventure games.
Or even action games, like Genesis and Super Nintendo each had 2 main entries, and then there was the Starfleet Academy, which was on 32X and Super Nintendo, and
Klingon Honor Guard, which was an amazing game.
Well, and I think that is part of the struggle with all these the specialty Trek subs, is that we're trying to do this on a franchise
that's dead.
On a franchise that's just teetering around being dead, and so there's not you've got a franchise that's being operated by,
which is a shame.
It really is.
And there's no good reason for it. It's just they shouldn't have canceled Enterprise, I think, when they did. And they shouldn't have canceled it without a plan for reviving the franchise. And I think the idea of just letting it go stagnant for 10 years or whatever, however long it was just a gigantic mistake.
You know who you have to thank for the cancellation of Enterprise? Les Moonves, who did not know the difference between Star Trek or Star Wars in the first place, was not a fan.
Well, yeah, I mean,
ran CBS,
shouldn't be making decisions like that. Should be making money decisions and franchise-based decisions. And I think Marvel has proven the value of franchises with MCU creation, and other people who own big franchises like CBS are coming back and saying, "Hey, how can we cash in on that?" And so they're coming out with an animated series, which I'm really excited for, by one of the writers of Rick and Morty. So I know you guys know that. I'm sure most of the listeners will know that. But I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do with the Patrick Stewart upcoming series as well. And I'm
definitely
hoping that's good. And I would really like to have another main entry into Star Trek that's more Star Trek-y, if you know what I mean by more Star Trek-y. More Star Trek-y than Discovery is.
Philosophical, is that the sort of...
No, not more philosophical, just more
commentary.
More nitty-gritty Star Trek, because my problem with... See, I like Discovery. I just don't like it as much as a Star Trek show, because when you get to like spore drives and stuff, it just seems ridiculous. It seems, and no offense to fans, but for me, it's like gets to a point where my ability to suspend disbelief is becoming, I'm becoming aware of it, and I shouldn't have to be. When I'm aware of that I'm trying to suspend my disbelief, it breaks it for me. So Star Trek, the new Star Trek's pulled me out of that quite a lot. I think overall it was a good season, especially with the mirror universe stuff. Like, that was my very favorite part. And Dwight Schrute in space. I mean, oh my God, that was amazing.
It was great.
That was the best episode by far, and it was the only one that was standalone outside of the main storyline. I think if they do that more next season, they have a chance of picking up a lot more fans. But I mean, again, I don't know how they're going to do that when they're on some exclusive streaming service that no one has.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That is hurting the fandom, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why from a business perspective they would try to do that, but at some point, when every man and his dog has a streaming platform, I mean, people are just gonna eventually look at it and go, I've got enough. I'm paying all this money on different platforms, Netflix and Amazon Prime, HBO, and 50 million things. Does CBS really need its own platform?
It absolutely does not. I mean, we can have a whole huge conversation on that, but let's just all agree that they don't.
Here's something that a lot of Star Trek fans consider to be heresy for me to say, and it's relevant, I think, because of the subreddit we're really talking about here. Treknobabble is something I liked about Discovery is that there wasn't actually that much technobabble in it, and it's something I've always loathed about Star Trek, and so it's kind of funny. Yeah. Given the subreddit, if the topic here is Treknobabble, and it's a brilliant subreddit, but
but you're saying the Technobabble on Star Trek is, and I think there are definitely times where it don't get me wrong, there are times where it does go way too far with made up technical jargon, but it's just always been funny to me. But yeah, I get your point, but you don't really have that as a trend in sci-fi as much anymore. But when they do the technobabble, they do it in more plain language, or they'll use a word like spore drive. I mean, that's still a technobabble or a Treknobabble.
Absolutely,
that's true.
It's the babble part of it, right? Because it's technical, but it's it's nonsense in real life. So it's the babbling part about it, right?
Some kind of subspace relay.
Some kind of subspace relay.
Some kind of Tetrion pulse.
That's right. It's like Doctor Who. Really,
it's like Doctor Who. I was about to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like whoever wrote the dialogue for the third
scanners
Doctor
instead of a sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got their they got scanners, and they have their they got tricorders.
Yeah, that's right. Although, see, we laugh at tricorders, but there is the old tricorder X Prize.
Oh, really? And for a medical tricorder?
Yeah, it is actually. It's by the same foundation that sort of led to the SpaceX.
And the person who wins it will have simply just made a phone app.
Yeah, some of them actually, if you actually look into that contest, some of them are just basically phone app type things.
Oh, I'm sure, because I mean, you already have such a powerful platform. I mean, that's one thing that, if we can talk about something that I think Star Trek did really well, is it gives hope, and it gives hope not just for the future of humanity, but and the future of technology, but for the future of humanity. I mean. But if you look at some of the things that it's predicted, like portable screens, for example, I mean, look at how much impact the world has, and that's part of also my problem with Discovery is I think they're trying to go too futuristic with it and have like these hologram communications, and it's like, dude, in the future you guys are using video, and video makes a lot more sense than a hologram. How does that hologram even work? Do you have like an avatar? Is it like scanning you? Like, are those people actually standing? What is their view of you as you're just sitting at your desk, right? I mean, it makes no freaking sense. But Star Trek used to be really good at that kind of stuff.
How does it work in Star Wars? I mean,
it doesn't though. But see, Star Wars isn't sci-fi. Star Wars is science fantasy.
No, yeah, that's true. But I mean, if you think in terms of the hologram communication, like it's something I always wondered since I was a kid watching, Episode 4, and you see Leia there. But
you're right. Maybe it's Star Wars. They're just scanning biological.
Yeah, like if there's a two-way communication between, say, like Vader and Palpatine, and they're both seeing holograms of each other, like, what are they?
And then why wouldn't you just do video?
Yeah.
Like the holograms are so washed out too. I'm like, bro, you guys have video in the future, right? Because in your future, you reinvented video at some point.
Well, I guess it's the whole thing of, technology is always crappy at some point, no matter how advanced it is.
Yeah, and see, and then you mentioned the philosophy. I felt Discovery was really heavy on the philosophy side of it.
Yeah, I guess it sort of depends on what sort of philosophical approach, what sort of philosophy do we value?
I will say that people who have said, just there has been like some people decrying that the philosophy was just too straightforward and it wasn't.
Well, I was more thinking like in terms of a lot of it was quite dark in Discovery, and
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised that the fan base is very divided, of course, but I'm a little surprised that people who love DS9 with a passion don't tend to be more likely to be fans of Discovery, if that makes sense.
You would think that would be a correlation between the two.
Yeah, it's got all the Section 31 stuff. It's got the Mirror Universe stuff. And really, like, we all think of the original series with the Mirror Universe, but DS9 was the one that really featured it.
Well, I felt that the Mirror Universe in Discovery was more based on the one in Enterprise, not the one from DS9. Even though I suppose they could be the same universe.
I feel like the Mirror Universe in Discovery went more back to what it should have been. Like, I think Enterprise did that well too. Like, I feel like they kind of went a little in the wrong direction in DS9 with it. That's just what I think, though. I think Enterprise sort of righted the course with the Mirror Universe.
Yeah. So I think that the Discovery one is more based on the quote unquote righted course version of the Enterprise version. I thought they did that super well. That was my favorite part. The Terran Empire and all that. That was my favorite part of Discovery, except for Dwight Schrute.
Now, with Discovery, and was there, and I didn't quite look into all the traffic, but did Treknobabble, and it seemed like we did, would you say that we experienced a growth with the coming of Discovery?
A little bit, yeah. Also, behind the scenes, I was actively trying to market our subreddit to get people in for Discovery because, we were going to be the free folk of the Star Trek, subreddit community, but, it still wasn't enough to get, a real big push because there's not a real big push behind the show and not a lot of people care. So I think even if you go to the Star Trek Discovery, the official one, or not the official one, but the one that is made for fans of the show, it's not that big either. I mean, there is
something I can speak to. Something I can speak to.
They're almost our size now. They have 13,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, there are communities like I remember in the Star Trek Discord. This is the r/Star Trek Discord server. Their population, about 2 months after Discovery came out, went from something like 500 or 600 members to almost double that just in the first 2 months alone. And now they're at something like, I think 2,200, 2,300 members. So at least on Discord, it had quite a large impact, but I don't know about your subreddit.
Yeah, we had an impact, and I expect a huge traffic bump once shows come back online, and hopefully once the new shows come out, because we'll have automated episode discussion threads for all the shows.
Something I've noticed, and this might actually come back to what you're saying though, is that I did notice, while I noticed it seemed to have a large impact on Discord servers, it didn't seem to really impact Reddit that much. I don't know why. Maybe it's the real-time format versus the forum format. I'm not sure.
No, I think what you have is the fact that you had a lot of people coming back into the Star Trek fold who were already fans.
True.
And I think on Reddit, probably most of those fans were already members of a Star Trek community, the one they wanted to be a member of. So they didn't really seek out new communities and new commenters and boldly go into new subreddits.
And that seems to be one of the things that we're hoping to correct with the United Federation of Reddit is to
expand
because
on
to expand that, because you made a good point. Once users tend to find that maybe one or two communities they go to, they may not be looking for others, or you need to hand that awareness to them, because we have found that there are a lot of mobile users. There's a lot of pruning of the content. They just want to see the link, upvote it and downvote it and move on. And we do all this work on these, making subreddits look nice, sidebars, et cetera. And it's kind of funny. This has happened a few times.
Well, and, if you look at the traffic stats, if what Reddit's telling us as mods are true, most users are mobile now.
Correct.
And only about a quarter of users are on the old Reddit. So only about 25% of your users are seeing all that CSS effort you put into your subreddit. So keep that in mind.
That's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, your subreddit r/Treknobabble has a great look on desktop. It looks
it's
awesome,
got a really nice CSS. It looks like crap in the new design. That's my fault. That was all Dead Fraggle, as far as I know. It was either Dead Fraggle or it was someone who he got in contact to do it. I'm pretty sure it was Dead Fraggle himself who did the subreddit design.
Right.
It is.
He was
nice.
actually talking about trashing it, and I was like, dude, we got like some of the best CSS in all of Reddit.
You guys have a brilliant.
It looks
CSS.
beautiful, and I remember when.
And one of my favorite things you've got is that Klingon snare. It looks brilliant.
Right. Well, also, like I just love how it looks like a console from Star Trek Next Generation era show.
Cars.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really nice, and I gotta get the new version of Reddit looking better, because we have it up, but we don't have Reddit doesn't give moderators the ability to change the color of font, and so it looks like ass.
So do you have any kind of when we talk about the different versions of Reddit, do you have any kind of idea how many people are using the new version versus the old one?
Yeah, a very small fraction.
Like using
I can
the new
tell you right
old?
now. The old. Let me get on one of my bigger subreddits, and I'll tell you.
Because I've been exclusively using the old one, and I just can't conceive of using Reddit with the new one, because it's terrible.
The new one, it has a bad UI.
It really does.
Yeah, but it has way better design tools for your average moderator, because your average moderator just needs to throw up a sidebar image and a banner and change the background color maybe, or something like that.
It does seem to make it a little bit easier for an average moderator who's not a CSS pro to make it look decent. I will say that in regards to where they're gearing it towards, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the new design.
Okay, so I'm looking at Dad Reflexes right now, which has about 1 million page views or uniques a month sometimes.
Right.
And so on this particular month, it was about 900,000 and about 118,000. So a little over 10%, almost 20%. No, a little over 10%, I mean, use new Reddit. So I would say that's probably an average across the board. It's a pretty good bellwether subreddit.
So that's a fairly small percentage using the new version.
Oh yeah, it's a fairly small percentage. And then you have the next biggest percentage is on old Reddit. So we had 224,000. You had we had almost 500,000 using the official apps, and another 132,000 using mobile web. So you have over 50% that are mobile with either the official apps or the mobile site.
Well, Zadoc, we really appreciate you coming by and joining us for our show. I think Treknobabble is a great sub. Really enjoy seeing it. I hope that others really enjoy that, and we hope that everyone subscribes to our Reddit community and enjoys the podcast, so that you can see just how much content that is out there for Star Trek and that is created by the Star Trek community.
Yeah,
So,
if you come and check out our Treknobabble, make a post about anything and just join in, just get started.
Absolutely. And as Q would say, see you out there.
See ya.
Got a red alert.